Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people seem to think that the world revolves around them and they can do what they want, when they want. And in today's episode, it's another wild one. We've got Karens harassing people in public, grandparents getting taught lessons, OP is sued for rejecting someone on a dating site. Guys, it's absolutely wild. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I went shopping at a grocery store today, and I had my infant daughter in a carrier. To keep her calm, I was casually talking to her. It was nothing spectacular, basically stuff like, should we take the bigger pack of meat, or the smaller one will do? Better take the bigger one, yes? We will take the bigger one, and we'll make schnitzels for Daddy. Do you think he'd like that? And if we're making schnitzels, we can also make strudel, as we have apples from Granny, remember? Oh yes, we should also get walnuts. Will you remind me that we need walnuts? Yes, you will. You're my good girl. Now, apologies for the long example, but I wanted to demonstrate the stuff I was saying. It was almost painfully normal. It's stuff parents say to their kids to get them used to sentences and words, etc. It's just a boring inner monologue that I was sharing with my daughter. Also, I was not by any means talking loud or in any way that could disturb someone. At one point, I noticed an older lady seemed to be shopping weirdly close to me for some time, but I would not think twice about it. That's when I made the mistake of looking over at her, and she approaches me all demanding. The woman comes up to me and says, "Hey, who are you talking to?" To that I respond, I'm just having a conversation with my daughter. And I do want to note that my baby gets a lot of attention from random grandmas. I thought that we'd get one of those, "Oh, what a cute little angel. Hello, honey, you're so sweet." Stuff like usual, and we'll be on our merry way. But no, Karen says, "But she is a baby." At that, I'm a bit confused, and I say, "Yes." Karen then says, "Well, then why are you talking to her like this, asking her stuff? She doesn't understand that." Me, even more confused, say, I just often talk to her like this to keep her calm, to help her learn words and to help her meet the world around her." Karen says, "But she's a baby. She can't answer the things you're asking, so why are you doing it?" Now, at this point, I'm flabbergasted, but I'm still leaning towards being confused that someone doesn't find talking to a family member one of the most common things there are. I just respond, "Well, I know." Karen then says, "Well then why do you talk to her? Stop it. This is ridiculous. You talk to her like she's an adult. She does not understand you. She can't reply to you. She doesn't talk." At this moment, I concluded that she must be a troubled person. Also, my willingness to explain to someone why I do talk to my very own child dropped dramatically. So I just respond with, "Okay, excuse me now, I would like to continue my shopping." I then tried to leave. That's when Karen says, "No, come back here, I will tell you what I think. I think you are some kind of freak who sees people. That's right, you are a freak and you talk to invisible people. No chance you're talking to your daughter because she's a baby. You are dangerous and you need your child taken away." And seriously, I was beyond words at this point because of the utter absurdity of the situation. I say to her, okay, if you say so. She then continued screaming at me for a solid 2 minutes after this, while I just kept walking. I stopped paying attention to her completely, and then I finished my shopping. I did forget the walnuts though. At the registers, I noticed her standing nearby, heavily gesticulating at me to some of the store employees, who were probably sane enough to not even bother coming to me, which was driving her even crazier. Only when I arrived home, I realized I should have said something like, "Oh, magical invisible creatures, please guide me with your wisdom and make me decide if the farmer on our street will have nice cauliflowers, then those, or if we should take the one here just to be sure. Oh, thank you, my good invisible people." Yeah, so that talking to our own kids is wrong now too, I guess. Guys, what in the world? I freaking swear some people are just so miserable that they always need something to complain about. Like, having conversations with babies is actually recommended, Karen, and it actually promotes healthy and quicker development. And with that said, even if OP was talking to invisible creatures or whatever, it's not illegal, right? So leave people alone. Like, nobody needs to hear your opinion, especially in a grocery store, Karen. It doesn't matter. And this person comments, "Oh, you didn't update your child about her?" I would have said, "Oh look, there's an angry person approaching us. What do we do when that happens? That's right, sweetie. We ignore them and walk away." That would have driven her nuts. Again, I don't know what the heck she was thinking, and seriously, the stuff some people do never ceases to amaze me. Like, holy, imagine if Karen saw people at dog parks talking to their dogs. I think her head might explode. So, for a couple of weeks since school started, these two neighborhood middle school kids, their brothers, have been messing with my brother, who's also middle school aged. They would do it at school, on the bus, and in the neighborhood. Nothing very serious, but super annoying things like taking his backpack on the bus, stealing his snacks, calling him names, and taking his toys at the neighborhood pool. I'm in my 20s, and he told me about it. He asked me to help. So the next time they came along while we're at the pool, I chewed them out for a few minutes, and they damn near crapped themselves. That seemed to fix it for a few days, after which I became their target. Now, they didn't really mess with me directly, but they did my car. With my parents' help, I recently bought a 2021 Toyota Camry TRD V6. I have a much older car too from high school, but this one is my pride and joy. Ask any of my neighbors and they'll know how much I love it. I pretty much wash it every weekend. Now, just yesterday, when I was almost done applying a coat of wax, I ran inside to grab a glass of water. I walked back out to the driveway to see those two mother effers running away with an empty carton of eggs, and my car was covered in yolks and eggshells. Of course, I lose my lid and I yell some nasty words at them. Not only had I just washed it, but I also waxed it this weekend, and that stuff takes hours to do for a really clean finish. Luckily, I didn't notice any paint damage. At that point, I was so mad that I wasn't letting these entitled kids get away with what they did. So I promptly drive my egg-covered car to those kids' parents' house and I knock. I then explain to the dad what just happened and the whole background. Now, these people have been more hostile than friendly in the past, but dad looked pissed at what happened, and he noticed how messed up my car was. Now, this dude is a linebacker-sized Marine veteran. He instantly calls his older kid and yells at him to bring both of their asses home right now. At the moment, Dad's profusely apologizing for his kid's behavior. A few minutes later, they show up, and this man has the voice of a drill sergeant. He brought his kids to tears in seconds. The guy then made them do push-ups right there, outside, with both of us watching. After that, he made them apologize to me, and he asked me to go home, and told me they'll be over in a few minutes to clean up my car. So all three of them come over, and I command those brats to rinse and wash and dry everything. The whole time, Dad just stood right there, pointing out his kids' mistakes. We did that for well over an hour until my car was spotless and shiny as a diamond. Before they left, he made his kids apologize again for what they did. Even though it was a massive inconvenience on my Saturday, I feel like it was such a win because I know those slimy kids will never mess with me or my family again. Honestly, guys, I did not expect Dad to lay the smackdown on those kids because, reading so many stories of parents just letting kids get away with things like this, you just never expect the punishment to fit the crime. Kudos to Dad for stepping up and parenting the kids instead of pulling the "my sons can do no wrong. Go home before I call the cops." Like most of the stories I read. The push-ups thing was absolutely wild though. Don't frickin' mess with a Marine veteran. Okay, so please hear me out because I still can't believe this happened. I met up with a guy from an online dating site. The guy seemed normal when we were talking. So I meet him at the restaurant and there's an obviously much older man than the 30-year-old he claimed to be. I sat down and I told him I was under the assumption that he was younger and that he told me he was younger. The guy then claimed that they were older pictures, and it must have been a typo that he was actually 45 years old, although his profile did say 30. I then apologized, and I told him right then and there that I wasn't interested in someone almost 20 years older than me. I wished him well. He then began to raise his voice a little, saying he already ordered a dish and wine for me, and that I need to sit down and eat with him. After I told him no again, the guy gets aggressive. So I go to the bartender and I give a brief explanation of what happened, and the manager walked me to my car while the bartender stayed with the guy to make sure he didn't follow me. I went about my merry way for a couple of months before I was served at work with papers stating I was being sued by the guy I met up with. Of course, I called the attorney listed to verify, and he confirmed that they were real. He was a client and I was being sued the cost of the entire dinner and his travel expenses because I used his age as discrimination, which was also illegal. And here's the absurd part. The amount of damages he was looking at originally was over $6,500. He claims the cost of dinner was $250, and his gas guzzler of a car used $150 of gas for the date. But the best part was, when we were talking, I mentioned how I wanted to go to South Africa, and the guy started buying the works for me. He had it all planned out apparently, and ready to go for me. I made the mistake of giving him my last name when talking to him over messaging, which is not common, so he found my employer on Facebook. Everything's since been locked down or deleted. Now, again, hear me out. I know this will get thrown out, and I'm fully aware he's crazy. Unfortunately, there's good and bad in the situation. The good is I did find an attorney to help me. I made an appointment and I tearfully explained my situation, begging him to let me make payments as I can only afford such and such amount, but I could sell my car if needed. Now, I'm not sure if it was the holidays or he just wanted me out of his office, but he told me not to worry about it. He agreed to start off with a very strongly worded letter, and we would keep in contact from there to see what happened. And here's the bad. Now, I don't want to go into much detail just in case, but law enforcement got involved. I am okay and unharmed, that's all that matters. What I'm able to give out, due to it being reported on, was after having changed my phone number, the guy attempted to show up at my apartment, and he waved a gun at the security guy when they told him they wouldn't let him in. However, there's now another investigation, as he may be linked to another criminal case in my area. But seriously, I know I've tried to use some humor in this, but I'm a little bit broken inside. I'll be starting therapy soon because it's given me a horrible panic attack every time I think about this, and I've just been trying to cope with how I could have been a statistic. Yeah, so that guy was definitely unhinged, and I'm so glad that Opie is safe, and I hope she stays safe. But ain't that something, right? Getting sued for bailing on a first date, that's the first I've ever heard. Like, the entitlement is just wild. And this person says the entitlement of this is insane. Like, even the mildest part of this, without the age BS, the lawyer nonsense, and the shocking trying to get into her place at gunpoint absurdity. If somebody had ordered me a meal on my behalf on a first date, that would have been enough for me to block them when I was still in the dating game. Like, the fact that every single move he made was an underhanded attempt to force her into a relationship without even having met her first is almost incomprehensibly delusional to me. I'm obviously not okay with the control and abuse in any situation, but you have to wonder how somebody thinks that any step in this plan might work. And this person says that ass used the lawsuit to get her information. Lawsuits have full names and party's address, so they can list proper venue and for service. He sued so he could find out where she lived. I'm convinced of it. I'm just as mad at the scummy attorney who took this case. So yeah, with that said, I want to know what kind of insane story the guy spun to the lawyer to get them to actually accept this case. Like, there's no way the guy went to any law firm and he said, this lady wouldn't date me because I'm older than her. And have somebody at that law firm respond with, you have a case, I'll take it, let's sue her. Like, the guy must have known a lawyer or had a friend or something that worked in a law firm. Anyways, what a wild ride that was. And guys, if you have entitled family members, specifically grandparents, this next post will leave you smiling. So this one is a doozy. To start, my family's Asian and my husband's side is white. My husband and I got married recently, and we decided to treat his side of the family and my side to a 1-week all-expense-paid vacation to Bora Bora as a pre-family honeymoon before going off on our real one. We were able to rent out half a side of the bungalows, and only one villa was in that section. My husband and I took the villa. The bungalows are 1,000 square feet, with 1 bedroom, consisting of 1 king or 2 queens. It's also got 1 bathroom and an outdoor space type of deal. We made sure that everyone was accommodated for, and everyone had a comfortable living situation. With that said, our villa is 4,000 square feet. It has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom including a sauna, 1 living room, a grand outdoor space with an outdoor bathtub, pool and slide to get into the ocean. We hadn't even made it a whole 24 hours here yet, and a fight's broken out. During dinner, my cousin mentioned wanting to come over to use our slide. My grandparents, overhearing this, asked what we were talking about, and then asked to see pictures of our room. Well, they saw my villa, and that's when they decided that we would trade rooms with them, as no elders should be made to slave and live as peasants while their grandchildren get a nice room. And this is Bora Bora we're talking about. No one is living as a peasant here. There was only one villa available in our section. Had I given it to my grandparents, I think it would have been offensive to my husband's grandparents. If there was 3, we would have given it to both grandparents and one for ourselves. But unfortunately, there wasn't. I mentioned this, and they still demanded the villa. I obviously objected, and I said I felt as though my husband and I should have that room, as this is a vacation with family to celebrate our marriage. Plus, we paid for the entire trip. Wouldn't one just sit back and be grateful that they're on a free vacation instead of complaining? And oh goodness, hearing that, my grandparents freaked out, saying I'm holding money above their heads and that I'm being disrespectful and not following their orders. They then gave me one more chance to swap with them, to which I said no. And that's when they stormed off after threatening to take the first flight out tomorrow morning. It was a huge mess. I had family telling me to just give them the room to be respectful and bring peace to the family, while my husband's side thinks my grandparents are crazy, and I agree. They're so ridiculous. All I wanted was both sides of the family to get together, to know each other, and now it's falling apart. I was up all night thinking whether I should just squash it and invite my grandparents to stay in the villa in order for them to not leave. But another part of me wanted to tell them to go F themselves for making my honeymoon about themselves, just like they do with everything else, just because they're elders. So even though I wanted to be petty and tell them to F off, I decided I'd better kill them with kindness so they have little to work with if they decide to spin it around that I was disrespectful. During breakfast, my grandparents refused to show up if I was there. Everyone tried calling them, and they flat out said, "We're not coming, cause my granddaughter's disrespectful." After a lot of persuading and even having to send our baby cousin to their room to soften them up, they finally decide to come. I made the first conversation by asking if they looked at any flights to leave yet and that they could forward the pay stub to my cell. They said they hadn't looked yet and that should be my job if I was kicking them out and making them go home. I made sure they knew that I wasn't kicking them out, but I told them they could leave if they wanted to. I'm not gonna stop them. I even offered to send some staff to their room to pack up their belongings so they could have a little more time to explore or get their complimentary in-room massage that comes with all the bungalows. They kind of stopped eating and they looked at each other in shock. And here's the thing. Every time they threatened to not go anywhere, my family's always babied them. And they've begged them not to leave and offered money or extravagant gifts for them to stay. Well, I'm not doing that. I'll pay for their flight home, but I've done enough, accommodating them on my honeymoon vacation. So there you have it. My grandparents weren't even planning to go home. They tried scaring me into begging them to stay, and I called their bluff. After breakfast, I found a flight leaving at around 5 p.m. I then walked to the main desk to ask them to cancel reservations for that room for the rest of the trip and to send staff to help pack. They also didn't get their complimentary massage because the resort only offers that on 4-night stays or longer. The staff came to help pack and they end up leaving. I'm currently in my villa de-stressing before dinner and some uncles came in. They confided in me that they were sick and tired of the entitlement my grandparents have had since day number 1, and they were glad that somebody in the family decided to speak up. My cousins came over as well, and honestly, they couldn't care less my grandparents are gone. In their words, they kill the vibe. So yeah, the post ends right there, guys, but I love this one so much because I know how entitled some grandparents can be with the "we're elders so we should be respected" mentality. And seriously, I wish I could have seen the grandparents' faces when they realized that OP wasn't backing down and canceled their whole trip and sent them home. Holy cow. And honestly, I wonder how it went down when OP got home and had to face them. I can't imagine it went well. But nonetheless, what a satisfying story of standing up against entitled elders, because I know in some cultures, age is everything. Age means respect, age means power, and age means I get whatever I want. Okay, so my step-sister-in-law is the kind of person who couldn't fathom why any woman would not want to become a mother. She's always been really critical of my choice to be child-free. She's always made some catty comments how I'll never know true happiness. However, when I saw her a few days ago at my dad's birthday party, she seemed to have done a complete 180. She told me again and again how she's supportive of my life choices, and how I shouldn't have kids if I don't want them. Now, I didn't really know what to make of this, so I said something like, "Oh, okay, thanks." But my gut told me that there was more to her sudden acceptance than she was letting on. The phone call I received from her yesterday proved my gut instincts right. She started off with the usual, "Hey, how are you? We need to get together soon," BS. And then she not so subtly inquires about my finances, like what sort of savings do I have? How much money do I make, etc. I of course got irritated and I asked her what she meant and to come to the effing point. That's when she giggles and she says, "Well, since you won't be having kids of your own, why don't you make my children your heirs?" Hearing that, I didn't know whether to laugh like a maniac or just get pissed. I decide to let her go on. She then says, "As you know, your brother and I are planning to have 4 kids at least. They have 1 at the moment. So when they're born, you can leave equal portions of your estate to all of them." I just respond, "Uh-huh." She then goes on and says, "So you and that boyfriend of yours, say you don't even want to get married. It's not like you have to leave anything for him, right?" I say, "Really?" She goes on and says, "Yeah, so I thought instead of your life savings going to waste, they can just go to your family." I respond, "After I'm dead." She says, "Yes." I say, "Do you plan to make it look like an accident or?" She then says, "What?" I respond, "So since you've been planning all of this, you must have made some plans to off me, right? Go on, tell me what it is. Is it something super creative and unusual?" At this point, a switch flips, in a way that only D-bags get when you call them out on their BS. My sister-in-law says, "How could you think that? I only suggested this so you wouldn't have the burden of worrying about what would happen to your money when you're on your deathbed." I just say to her, "Aren't you a sweetheart? I'll spare you the burden of worrying about me, worrying about my money, by leaving everything I have to charities I support." She just started blabbing again, but before she could form a full sentence, I hung up. I also called my dad to let him know about this. This morning, I received a call from my stepbrother, and he apologized profusely for what his wife said. I told him if she ever pulled anything like this again, it'll be the last time I speak to them. Honestly, that's enough to cut her off already. Like, that phone call was absolutely ridiculous. Like, she's already planning to split OP's money while OP's still alive, and clearly she wants it for herself and her family. Ain't that some selfish BS right there, my friends? That's a good way to get absolutely nothing. And guys, that brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where bosses are getting destroyed left and right. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.